Hi Saints. I need to do this video. I felt this in the back of my mind for a little bit here. Just a little bit of a context. Uh, Brother Brian at OT for Jesus um, was asking me some questions through YouTube private message, and he pointed to this YouTuber here. I go too slow for you to see me, and he just wanted to see if I thought that. Um, the well, really it was the timeline video down here. If I thought that that seemed to make sense, he was bouncing it off several people before he made some recommendations, and I watched it, and I'd have to say a lot of times, anybody that studies the Bible a lot, or specifically, areas or passages, um, when somebody's saying something that's right out of the Bible, whether it's your interpretation or not, you at least know they're saying something right out of the Bible or not. And when I watched it, I had no conviction that anything was taken out of context, even, and it seemed biblical. And so that's basically all I told him is, I couldn't really find a flaw in what he was doing or how he was even interpreting the passages. And um, so that went on, and you know Brian put out his video, and he linked to a couple other real interesting ones, and so this stuck with me. And so I watched our brother here, and I watched several of his videos. He's got a whole bunch of them, and I'll show you the overview. And I definitely recommend you coming in and watching the rest of the some of these videos. But this, if you watch the timeline one, and you want to sort of catch up on the rest of the timeline, I'd actually suggest going from timeline one to this part two, signs everywhere. I know it seems a little goofy according to his playlist, but for me it was rounding out the rest of his timeline. Let me show you kind of what we're talking about here. Just want to reference again, I go too slow for you to see me. Uh, I think the brother is really onto something here. So Um, here's, I stopped the video kind of where he was showing the key, I'd say the key overview slide, and I asked him through YouTube messaging if he could just share this graphic with me because I wanted to do this video. And he said he posted it on Facebook, which is great. I'm not a Facebooker. Um, his Facebook is Reese Wise, Reece. And if somebody goes there, if you got a Facebook account, I appreciate it if you let me know through YouTube messaging. I'll give you my email. I'd actually love to have this graphic. And let me just give you my opinion. So one, I wasn't convicted that anything was taken out of context in what he was doing. It was two, it was biblical. Three, it incorporated several things that other folks have confirmed, let's put it that way, which gave me some confidence that it wasn't a whole new story. It wasn't a private interpretation, as the Bible warns us against. It was actually incorporating interpretations that other people had vetted. So that's another level of comfort. The only thing I'll say is, everybody worries that they're going to make the mistake. People say date setting or you know, popularizing something kind of, I don't want to use a bad example, but kind of like Harold camping and then have it not come to pass, and then going through the whole condemnation of being a false prophet and all the stuff that comes with it. So I don't want any of that put on this gentleman because he's careful about how he talks about his chart. Um, he's just demonstrating what he's found and how he thinks it fits. And I don't want to go past, the way. he talks about his own work. Even though I am personally pretty excited, because once you go through his videos, you'll get uh, you'll get a lot of I'll just say confirmation in the way the things fit together, that this sure seems too coincidental to be not something significant. Let me put it that way. And so I don't want to over dance around it either. I feel some anxiousness that if this is the correct scenario, and again, there's lots of things to track down on his slide here and to watch in his videos. If this is the correct scenario, we're really close. And so what I want to do is go through this just a little bit, just an overview, and then encourage you heavily to go watch the brother's videos here and see for yourself what he's saying. And then we'll talk about a few ramifications here right after we get through some of this. So the first thing I'll note, and what he ends up confirming in this second video here, the part 2, signs everywhere, is that the anchors to this slide are these things that he's found through Stellarium and probably through other people's work. Because we know out of Genesis that the stars and the planets were made for signs and seasons and the rest. And so right away out of Genesis, God's telling us that the planets and the stars were made for signs. So there's the first biblical anchoring. And then as we'll see, specific passages say, and then I saw a sign in heaven, and it points you exactly there. And so that's why, again, I point to that this one feels like it's based on the biblical principles that we've been given. Okay. Secondly, I think just about everybody now that is a Bible believing Christian that thinks we're coming into the end times probably has heard of the blood moon tetrad, so we're not going to beat that one down anymore. But the curious thing here, and now this is May 14th, 2014, is when this brother says quite probably this 7-year peace treaty is signed, the kickoff of the tribulation is based on this sign. So again, go watch his video related to this, and what Brother Brian, when he pointed out this gentleman's YouTube channel, said that made him feel comfortable is he hadn't found anybody pull together a scenario where the we have to have the sun going dark and the moon turning to blood in Joel 2:31 before the great and terrible day, and that's repeated in Acts 20. And sure enough, when Brian said he hadn't seen anybody pull it together and make sense of that, that's exactly what this Reese here, I'm just assuming that's his name because he said that was his Facebook post, Reese Wise. What Reese found was that things line up, these day counts is what he calls them, line up with the start of the tribulation being May 14th, 2014. And a lot of people, again, would recognize May 14th as a very significant day because it was on that day in 1948 is when Israel was declared a nation. And a lot of folks, again, would know that that's biblical out of Isaiah as well. And so that fits as well as in Matthew 24. We get the statement about the fig tree budding out its leaves and knowing that the time is near. And it says this generation will not pass until all these things are complete. And all these things actually was after the description of the Great Tribulation. And so we know if the clock on that passage started in 1948 and the length of a generation being 70 to 80 years, according to Psalm 90, is it? We have to be in the season. And then, like I say, when he lists May 14th because of all these reasons, and it sits right after what fits with Joel 2 and repeated in Acts 2. That is kind of exciting. So there's the kickoff thing again that made it feel pretty good to me. Is that it's biblical, it's anchored in the signs in the heaven, which God said. It fits the way Joel 2 says it needs to fit, that these events need to occur before the day of the Lord. It's in the period of time of the blood moon tetrads, which folks know that the blood moons were significant for um, the Jewish people as kind of a harbinger, almost a harbinger after the fact, because the blood moon, first uh, tetrad that we see in current times was 1949 to 1950, which was just after the 1948 birth of the nation of Israel and the very day after Israel was attacked. And so the pattern that Messianic pastor Mark Biltz, who found this, says is that, the Jewish people will go through a time of intense persecution followed by a time of reward or success, if you want to say. 1967-68, 6-Day War, again the same, which was an incredible battle, and yet the Jewish people took a bunch of the land back in Israel, and now again these blood moon tetrads might portend the next set of battles, and I think this comment here, the temple, I know Scotty uh, Clark talks about that, famous YouTube guy there, that he's really saying that, Israel's birth, it acquires a bunch of the land, starts reclaiming the land of Israel, and then the next thing he sees is building of the temple. So that's all, again, we know the temple needs to get built. That comes out of Daniel 9:27. And so again, like I say, these passages just roll through your brain. It seems to fit. Let's go now. We'll take a quick look at Revelation 12. That's also Scotty Clark at Eternal Rhythm Flow on a YouTube. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet. Upon her head was a crown of 12 stars, and she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there was appear another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on his heads. So now this passage is really important for everybody involved here. Let's just point this out here. Great wonder in heaven. Okay, so it's clearly God was pointing us toward those signs in the heaven. That's again what really makes me impressed with what's going on here with this gentleman Reese's videos. And again, the dragon pictured is in heaven. So let's come back to here. I'm not a I'm like the last one to come to for astronomy. I can barely pick out the Big Dipper on a clear night. but these a lot of people know how to use that Stellarium program, which is impressive. The first guy I know, like I say, that came up with the great sign in heaven of the woman with the 12 stars on her head was Scotty Clark from Eternal Rhythm Flow. I don't know if he got that from someone else or if he just found it, but I know since people have gone way out into the future and gone way backward, and that sign just doesn't happen again. I don't know how far you can go before it happens, but it's hundreds of years, I believe. So this was huge when this sign was found. And then that second passage we just read, Revelation 12, here's the dragon sign. And so that's really, really, biblical how this is coming together. Now, there's something important here with the whole next batch of things, and Brother Reese, uh, it anchored off of something he learned. So he got this, knew it was about the mid-trib because we're in Revelation 12, and he also has videos confirming that he knows that Revelation is laid out in chronological order, which again I agree wholeheartedly with that analysis. And but he found something curious here because he was trying to figure out how do these things fit together, and the thing he was trying to fit together were all these day references, the 1335 days, the times and a half, the 1290 days of Daniel 12, okay, and then he's got the 42-month references down here, and then the one that most people use to do their stuff, including me, was the 1260-day reference, thinking that these that the middle of the tribulation had to be right at 1260 days in, because according to Daniel 9:24 through 27, it's in the midst of the week that the abomination of desolation happens, and that's what this sign is again pointing to, but it's not exactly in the middle. And the way Brother Reese here got to it was he noticed that the Daniel 12 here, the 1290 days, Daniel 12:11. Let me see if I got that up. Yeah, I think I do. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved their lives not unto death. Hang on. That is not the one. Just a minute. Okay, I knew something was wrong. I was in Revelation 12, not Daniel 12. Sorry about that. So Daniel 12:11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there should be 1,290 days. And again, these are uh, the passage that everybody has been trying to reconcile. And the second one here is like it. Blessed he that come to the 1,335 and 30 days, 305 and 30 days. And let's go back again to the chart, because from the time the abomination of desolation is set up. And so he said, well, if it's 1,290 days, presumably to the end of the tribulation, because you're going to be blessed, that means it's not 1,260 going back to the start, but it's 1,200. The remainder of that is 1,230 days. So that's super key. One is key for him because all these other day counts sort of started falling into place when he made that realization that the Revelation 12 sign is not dead center in the 7-year tribulation. It's just offset. It's a little bit earlier than what most people see. And so the 7-year period is 1,230 days to the abomination desolation, then 1,290 days going out. Now there's a whole bunch of other things going on here where we see the day counts repeated, the time and a half, the 42 months and the like, and it's anchored off of another set of passages. And so let's take a quick look at that. The days are shortened, and that's the last, I believe it's the last bowl here. Hang on a second. So here we are in Revelation 16, verse 16 through 18. Oh, I see it's in the New International Version. Let's not do that. King James. And he gathered them together at a place, Hebrew tongue called Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there's voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such that was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And then Brother Reese tied that together with the Matthew 24:22 verse. And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. And his comment, or the thing that connected it, was we had the Fukushima earthquake and it changed the rotation of the Earth and the length of a day slightly. Well, if this is an earthquake so great, and we know that the mountains flee and the oceans leave and all that as part of the reconfiguring of Earth, so it's probably tied to this great earthquake, certainly then is going to affect the rotation of the Earth and the length of the day. This is very reasonable. If you've been watching my videos, you also know that I make the comment that Matthew 24, starting in, I think it's verse 4, really starts at the beginning of the tribulation period in terms of what it's describing. So when the brother talked about Revelation 16, this sign being tied probably to Revelation 24, verse 22, again, it jives with the way I interpreted these passages, gave me another level of comfort that he was on to something here. So um, that's all significant because part of these day counts have to do with what if the days are shortened, or they are shortened. And what the brother figured out was some of these day counts go for the length of what it's describing, and some of them are in reference to the shortened days as a confirmation. And it ties exactly, every time he's got this, it ties exactly into significant days or dates according to the signs in the heavens. Okay, and so he gets confirmation multiple times that the signs that he's seeing in heaven, and there is a meaning for Saturn, Satan, Jupiter, Mercury, and all that, they make sense celestially according to um, uh, the signs that are appearing as well. So that, there's lots of confirmations on this chart, and I'll leave it to you. That's like an overview, and he's got however many videos here you got to go watch to really get the context of what he's saying. But that's like an overview, and hopefully that's enough to kickstart you to want to go watch these. So really cool, and I appreciate this. Again, if anybody's got a Facebook account and you want to go to Reese Wise, his Facebook, and download this, I'd appreciate getting this graphic. He said that's where he put it, so I'm assuming he's A-okay with me getting the graphic and possibly using it in other videos. Now, one thing he touches on real lightly, I can't remember which video it's in, um, but it's got my head spinning. I'll have to just say that much. Is he's got this little flag up here, Jewish year 6000 on April 1st, 2014. Um, so let's go take a look at what's going on there now. He does all his counting on this Torah calendar, and I know Scotty Clark from Eternal Rhythm Flow uses this quite a bit as a reference as well. And just a minute. So here we've got spiritual year 6000. I'm in month 2 because I was trying to get at this May 14th date on the calendar. And sure enough, you want to talk about more confirmations. It's the second Passover. It's just, it just blows you away. This is, to me, these are the things that are the fingerprint of God. When things line up, in multiple ways and with multiple coincidences, you just can't ignore them. So anyways, there you are. Now the second thing that's, let's say, an eerily coincidence is what this Torah calendar, folks, if you go read, uh, let me see if I can back up without blowing this thing up. Um, they tried to do what is a creation calendar. They went back, they did Bible study. If you can go read, what this calendar restoration was about. Um, they tried to restore the original calendar used since creation. Research derived from a combination of sources, including scripture, ancient records, and advanced lunar and planetary motion theories that culminated in the creation calendar. And so they tried to make a serious study of this. So here's the next eerie thing. If you want to look at these Hebrew years, you have to adjust because the Hebrew year begins in spring. So if you want to see the end of um, the current Hebrew year, let's say, you have to do it this way. Now, granted, it's Gregorian calendar 2014, but we're going to take a look at the Hebrew calendar here using 2013 up above, and now month 13 because this has the leap month in it, okay? And where are we at? We're in month 13, so leap month on the spiritual year 5999. And if that's not freaking you out, I don't know where your head's at. So here we are, basically we're right at the year 6000 mark. And now, most people know, and again, I think it's according to rabbinic tradition, that the 7 days of creation, the first six, and then God rested for the seventh, is also, many people say, the model for God dealing with man. And, if their calculations are right, we're coming right up on the 6,000th year. And, if God made all, all of creation for man, 6,000 years, and then the seventh day he rested, and the 7,000th year is the millennial reign, according to Revelation 20. We sure got a model that appears to be time running out for the 6,000th year. So that's, it's sort of, I don't know, just adding to my anxiousness about what we're seeing now. If it couldn't have been any lighter, and I'm sure you're probably not even able to see this, he puts rapture with a question mark right on the 6,000th year. You know what? If you're gonna pick a date, let's put it that way, it sure wouldn't be a bad one to pick if that calendar was accurate. And again, you could see he's looking for a pre-tribulation rapture. Now, again, Brother Reese here touched on that so lightly that I'm sure he'd be horrified that I brought you to the calendar and pointed this out. Um, and I'm not talking about a day for the rapture. I just thought it was super significant that we hit that 6,000th day just before the tribulation tetrads. Okay, it's to me that was the big thing. People know I've done a couple of videos on the imminence doctrine for the rapture, and so you won't catch me pointing at a date. Matter of fact, I would, if you just twisted my arm 100 times around, I would say you'd almost argue for the rapture maybe being prior to this day. And I'm not even going to try and justify it because again, I'm a doctrine of imminence kind of person, but thought I'd point that out anyway. So again, all these things that really feel like they fit biblically and according to the brother, these day counts that nobody, I've looked at this stuff for 10 years and I've seen all sorts of uses for these counts in here and attributing them to years and all sorts of things as well. And God did use these day counts as patterns for years as well. There's some really significant stuff that you can find about that, but the surface level meaning of these had never been interpreted to my satisfaction until now. And that's why I feel like, boy, this just feels like it fits. So I'm going to leave you with that, with a heavy recommendation to go watch a bunch of the brothers' videos here. And in context to this chart, which I'll say the completed chart, or at least completed to this point, is sitting here in this video, part 2, signs everywhere. And if somebody wants to shoot me this graphic off of Reese Wise Facebook page, message me if you got it, and then I'll give you my email, and that would be awesome. Okay, now let's I want to break into a little bit of ramifications based on this, so hang on. Okay, so let me get to the correct slide here. So again, people have seen a bunch of my videos. I tried doing an end times timeline, kind of a big sweep, more to just try and order things and try and demonstrate that, this plan was, from the very beginning in terms of both the Bible and God's plan. And you see the slugs of references we've got here. And again, I had a whole bunch of videos on my channel just kind of walking through that. And a couple of the ramifications now I want to talk about is we see how close, today is February 8th, 2014. Brother Reese would potentially have the tribulation starting on May 14th, 2014. So 2.5 months from the making of this video. And we've got the Psalm 83 war that I had postulated based on the work of Bill Solis, but a bunch of other Bible prophecy teachers and theologians put that there, and then followed it with Ezekiel 38 and 39. And there was a rationale, there's no specific ordering given in Psalm 83 passage in regards to the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war of Gog and Magog. There was just a premise because in Ezekiel 38, 39, it talked about the Jewish people would be living at peace without walls, bars, and gates. And we all know that, there's a 400-mile wall separating, is it the West Bank from Israel? I think that's right. Anyways, 400-mile long wall that Israel had to build to prevent the bombings, the terror bombings. And there, you wouldn't view that as living secure. And so the premise, and Bill Salas offered this up, is Psalm 83 war appears to be all of the people that touch the borders of Israel, the population groups, and today they would be, Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, Jordan, right? All those that touch the borders appear to come at Israel, and then according to some of these passages, the Israeli Defense Forces appear to completely win this battle, which is the rationale then, how do you get Israel living sort of at peace? Well, it's all the enemies that hate them, that surround them. And again, you could throw a Zechariah 12 in there as well. If they're defeated militarily, that could put them at peace for this scenario to play out. Now, the point I'm going to make in terms of ramifications, biggest one being, if we're only 2.5 months from the tribulation, if, then how soon would the rapture be? So that's got to be number one. And are you right with God? And we're going to talk about that before the end of this video. But secondarily, in terms of what people are looking for, we really don't have time, if you ask me, to complete 2 wars. We might not even have time to have Psalm 83 war happen before the signing of that peace treaty, and before the start of Daniel's 70th week, or the tribulation period. And so this is really, this is weighing on me right now. We might not see any of that happen. As a matter of fact, we might see that these 2 wars might actually be part of what's going on here in the first set of seals. We see that a great sword was given to make war over the whole world. I think that was the rider on the red horse, and then it's followed by death and famine and the like. That may all be the rider on the red horse, for instance, might actually be these wars going on here. I just don't think there's time, and this is just speculating out loud. If there's 2.5 months left for that stuff to occur prior to the May 14th date. And the one thing I guess that leads me to believe then is this current peace treaty being worked out with John Kerry representing the U.S. and then the EU is involved. Everybody's involved in this thing. might be the one that's confirmed. It might be the covenant that's confirmed in Daniel 9:27. But if you're watching the news right now, Israel is okay with the framework, and the Palestinian um, leadership isn't. And Israel's worried about security more than anything, and the uh, Palestinians are more worried about that they don't want a Jewish state, if we can just say it that boldly. And so, how would that get reconciled? I don't know. How do you get Israel to the point of uh, signing a peace treaty, taking down the walls, and living in that state of peace and security, which is the mantra that that leads up to the tribulation period. We know that from 1 Thessalonians 5, I think it is, and then have these wars in here. And I'm just going to speculate out loud. I don't mind putting my foot in my mouth. Um, the Catholic Church is looking for the Space Brothers to come, and uh, you watch in the news, everybody involved in this peace treaty process right now is making trips to meet with the Pope, the first Jesuit Pope. And so something is definitely up. And if the Catholic Church thinks it's imminent that the Space Brothers are going to arrive, that they're going to teach us a new gospel, and all those revelations that came out from uh, Tom Horn and Chris Putnam, um, might that somehow play into the feeling of Israel being secure if somebody else is guaranteeing that peace treaty? We know the Antichrist is involved in the signing. If the Antichrist is somehow from that manifestation, would that give Israel the security they need to get a peace treaty done, give up part of Jerusalem, right? And my second thought is, well, how do you get the Palestinians and at all the people that are concerned with them, everybody from Iran to all those surrounding nations, and they've got 170,000 rockets pointed at Israel. How do you get them to back off from not doing something when they think they need to cause that war to have them, and this is the Shia eschatology in particular, to have the Mahdi come, their Messiah? Well, let me just throw something down. What if, we know the Antichrist has to be at the table for the peace treaty. What if there's a manifestation of some sort, UFO, whatever? Um, Pope declares Space Brothers, this person that comes off needs to be part of the peace process, right? But as part of that, it's triggered by, the arrival is triggered by the Palestinians, the Hamas, Hezbollah, shooting all their rockets, trying to start this war because they don't want the peace. What if the manifestation occurs right as that's happening? Um, they get their plan then. The Mahdi came as the Jewish state is being attacked, and who knows? Everybody's looking at the U.S., what they call the Great Satan, to be attacked as well. What if the U.S. is attacked? There's two Iranian warships for the first time heading to the shores of the U.S. I think on the Atlantic side right now as I'm recording this. What if the U.S. is attacked simultaneously? Israel is attacked, and there's some heavenly manifestation, let's just call it that puts an end to those attacks at some point. That would satisfy what at least one big branch of the Islamic faith believes is that brings the Mahdi. And if the Catholic Church, unfortunately representing many Christians, also accepts the Space Brother and brings them to the peace table because the Pope appears to be negotiating with everybody, that would be a scenario to put Israel at peace and to allow the Palestinians that don't want Israel to exist to accept the peace deal because their Mahdi has come and is part of the peace process. So that's just a scenario, and I know I kind of drug that out, But it's a big deal for me to make sure that these things are biblical. And the Jewish rabbis are looking for this event, and many um, eschatology teachers and whatever believe that this is a legitimate event that's documented in the Bible. And if it's not going to be pre the tribulation period, and I'm not saying, it absolutely can't be, but there's only 2.5 months left if we accept for now Reese's timelines, then these wars probably have to be maybe in during the tribulation period, and we have to get those conditions right for the political to be resolved, for the Palestinians to want to sign it, for the Jewish people to feel secure. Something has to be different by that point. And again, if the timeline's right, we're 2.5 months away. Along with the destruction of Damascus would have to be some point during the tribulation period. And you might be able to pick up a whiff of that in Jeremiah 49, and I'm just going to leave that there. So, um, wow, that's a lot of stuff, but I think that it's super important to make sure that when we look at that timeline, nothing runs counter to the Bible. And as I say, I'm just not seeing anything that refutes it, which, for me, that's a big deal. It needs to be that way to be true. The other thing I can tell you that this is just kind of coincidental. You probably caught this on my videos if you're watching close. I have shifted the two witnesses appearing to the beginning, to the end, to the middle, to the beginning, to the end. I just could not make up my mind. The problem was Revelation 11, 1 through 13, where the two witnesses are described. It's the only place they're described in Revelation. And you can't tell why is the passage there just sort of at the midpoint, let's say, of the tribulation, according to the scripture. Did they actually arrive, because they're witnessing for 1260 days, did it arrive before that point, or did they come at that point and they're going to stay for 1260 days? And the reason why I landed coming back here to the beginning, which now apparently is wrong, is because they lay in the street for 3 days before they're resurrected, and the whole world, or the people that witness it, celebrate and give gifts to each other when they're dead in the streets. Well, that means that Armageddon hasn't come, all this. And so I thought, well, if they minister for 1260 days, it puts them at the end of the tribulation period. But as you remember from Brother Reese's slide, if there's 1290 days from the abomination of desolation to finish the tribulation period, and if Revelation 11 comes before Revelation 12 where that's described, you've got plenty of time then, according to the timeline, to have the two witnesses appear at Revelation 11 just prior to the midpoint of the tribulation, and they stay 1260 days. You still have probably months, or at least a month plus months after they're dead in the streets and resurrected before the tribulation ends. So it solves all sorts of problems the way Brother Reese had laid that thing out. And so again, I'm impressed. I can't, I don't want to be the false prophet that, if these dates come and go, that hung on to it too tightly. I'm just saying it was a big deal in my mind. I'm going to end, and I probably should have ended sooner, but I was just compelled by one more thing. If anybody, before it's news, you got to watch that and just take everything with a grain of salt, because anybody can post there. But this Lynn Liaz, I think is the way she pronounces it, takes a biblical slant on a lot of the stuff that she posts, and she posts some interesting things that eschatology folks would find interesting. And so she got scientists are frozen speechless as shocking new DNA evidence reveals Nephilim's existence. And so I'd have you go to Before It's News and watch her video. And again, you can see here it's one of these Nephilim characters, right? And they took the DNA out of one of these Nephilim guys, and it's being reported not just in Before It's News. The interesting thing is it's being reported in this here Ancient Origins uh, newsletter website, and this is the article she's referencing. And the uh, DNA analysis came back, and it's the mitochondrial DNA with mutations unknown in any human, primate, or animal so far, but a few a few fragments I was able to sequence from the sample indicate that if these mutations will hold, we are dealing with a new human-like creature very distant from Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovians, which, again, he's using the evolution framework, which that's, bankrupt. What we got here is this is the, this is the Nephilim. This is the, and I've pounded on this probably way too much for anybody's liking, but I really think we get in the Bible the return of the Nephilim in the last days, in the tribulation period in particular. We get it from all over the place. It's referenced. I go into Numbers 24. We see it in Daniel 2 with the clay shards that don't cling to the iron. It's it's in a whole bunch of passages, depending on how you interpret them, that make reference to the Canaanites. And I did one before about the Canaanite being in the temple. I just did that one. It seems more I accept that stance, the more it pops out to me from the Bible. And here we've got these Nephilim from old, and the dating, 3,000 years ago fits with, the premise is the early expulsion of some of these Nephilim when Joshua brought the Jewish people into the promised land, because they were being decimated. Well, first by Esau and his descendants to the east of Israel, and then by Joshua. The premise was that these Nephilim, some of them escaped up into Europe and actually came out into the Americas, which that's where this skull is from, is South America. So the thing I haven't been settled on in my mind is, are we looking for giant, elongated skull dudes showing up as maybe part of the alien deception, which really, so many scholars now have pointed to that probably being the great deception during the tribulation period. Are we looking for that, or are we looking for skeletal evidence seems to indicate that as time went on and the Nephilim interbred with humans, that their characteristics became less distinguishing, and we know that the folks that like to think of themselves as the Illuminati are all concerned that their bloodline retains the DNA, and they believe they descended from these guys. So is that how that's going to work? So we've got DNA saying that these things don't match with any known human, and then we also have here, this again is from that Lynn Liaz's video. I just frozen on this frame here, where she actually notes that we saw the big-headed or large skull people in the time of Egypt as well. Now she also makes a track here saying this is somebody here that represents a prominent European noble that had this skull, elongation, and it would seem to confirm also that there is something to this bloodline thing that the Illuminati seem to be so concerned with. So that one still isn't settled for me, what to expect. The Bible seems to point to the return of the Nephilim in the end of days. And is it just the descendants, the bloodline descendants that are part maybe in our population today. The Illuminati claim to be that. Is it that, or is it the return, through the great deception, the alien encounter, that actual DNA may be being resurrected? The BBC had that article several years ago about Gilgamesh tomb was dug up in Iraq, and the skeleton remains were, of course, taken, as many of these Nephilim remains are. They were taken, they disappeared. So is there some sort of reconstituting of one of these Nephilim from a long time ago? And again, if you watch my videos, the Bible sure sets up a scenario where the return of Nimrod would make a lot of sense, taking a look at the end times Babylon and the role of the Antichrist. And so that's all happening right now. This is a brand new video out there, and it seemed to sort of tie into this, looking at the end timeline. Something here with the Great Deception is going to happen very soon as well. And, I think the church is probably going to be gone, but we're potentially only 2.5 months from some of this exploding. So leave me notes down below. I appreciate comments. If anybody grabbed that graphic from Reese Wise Facebook page, again, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, Saints, and I guess I need to leave you with a little gospel preach here. Boy, if there's, again, I'm using this as a hypothetical, but if there's 2.5 months left, and if you're watching this video and you haven't completely surrendered yourself to Christ, that's the only way you're getting out of here, whether it happens on day 6,000 or some other time. It's the only way you're going to get out of here and not incur God's wrath that is certainly coming. And this is getting so tangible and so real, and so are all the other news events pointing to this, that you don't have to look hard at all to see this is coming. This is imminent, and it's probably less than 2.5 months away. Probably maybe a lot less than that. So, all I can say is no one goes to the Father except who accepts the Son, right? And so if you haven't been born again, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. And being born again is as easy as recognizing that you're not getting to heaven on your own. Jesus said that we're all sinners, and God can't have sin in his kingdom. The only way to get rid of your sin is get the righteousness, the imputed righteousness we read in 1 John epistle, imputed righteousness of Christ attributed to us who are undeserving of that grace. And so admit you're a sinner. Even your thoughts are being watched. Nobody can say that their thoughts and their deeds have not sinned even once in their life. So just admit that you're a sinner. You know you are. Beg God through the blood of Jesus that you accept Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection to take his righteousness that you couldn't earn, and believe in that, and not very long, who knows if we're measuring now in hours or weeks or months or whatever, we're going to be brothers and sisters together in heaven. So say that prayer. Say, Father, I know I'm a sinner. I accept Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection as the payment in full for my sin. I put my full faith and trust in Christ's finished work on the cross. Thank you for saving me, Jesus. Bring the Holy Spirit. I wish to be born again and become a child of the living God. In Jesus' name, amen. And if you're saying that and you're believing that and you're seeing what's going on and that's in your heart, God just saved you. And so um, if you have any more questions about that, again, please message me directly. God bless everybody. It's time short.